The first thing Olivia Hayes noticed wasn't the blood. It was the stranger's eyes, cold, alert, unwilling to surrender. Rain hammered against the sidewalk outside her family's bakery as she locked the front door for the night. Thunder rolled across Manhattan, drowning out the distant sirens that had become part of city life. Then a man burst from the narrow alley beside her shop. He grabbed her wrist before she could scream. His expensive black suit was soaked crimson. He shoved a pistol into her trembling hands. "Keep them away from him," he ordered, pointing toward the alley behind him. Before Olivia could ask a single question, he turned and disappeared back into the darkness. Another gunshot exploded. Then another. Silence. A heartbeat later, a tall man staggered out of the alley and collapsed onto the wet pavement directly in front of her. Blood spread beneath him with terrifying speed. Olivia froze. She had never touched a gun. She had never treated a gunshot wound. She was just a neighborhood bakery owner who spent her days kneading bread before sunrise and her evenings worrying about bills and her younger sister's future. None of this belonged in her world. Around her, frightened pedestrians scattered in every direction. Someone shouted for the police. Someone else yelled to leave before the shooters returned. Olivia looked down at the dying stranger. He couldn't have been much older than his late 30s. Despite the agony twisting across his face, he fought to stay conscious. His hand instinctively pressed against the wound in his side, but blood continued pouring between his fingers. She remembered something her father had taught her years before. When panic takes over, he used to say during his cancer treatments, "Don't think about fear. Think about the next thing that keeps someone alive." Without allowing herself another second to hesitate, Olivia dropped to her knees. She tore open the stranger's tailored jacket, pressed both hands firmly against the wound. "Stay with me," she ordered. His breathing faltered. No. His eyelids drifted shut. Olivia leaned closer. "If you close your eyes now," she said, her voice shaking but determined, "I can't save you." Slowly, painfully, his eyes opened again. For a long moment, he simply stared at her as rain streamed down both of their faces. Then, instead of asking for help, instead of thanking her, he whispered one unexpected question. "Why?" His voice was barely audible. "Aren't you running from me?" Olivia didn't know his name. She didn't know why armed men wanted him dead. She didn't know that every major crime family in New York feared the man lying in front of her. She only knew one thing: I don't leave people behind. The stranger closed his eyes for only a second. Not in surrender, but in quiet disbelief. 6 hours later, every police scanner across New York repeated the same urgent message. The wounded man rescued outside a small neighborhood bakery had survived. His name was Dante Moretti, the most feared mafia boss in the city. And moments after waking inside a private underground medical facility, his first order wasn't to hunt the assassins. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't war. His first words were, "Find the woman who refused to let me die." Because neither of them realized that the bullet Olivia had quietly removed from his body had just become the single most dangerous piece of evidence in New York. The rain never stopped. It poured over the narrow streets of Little Italy, turning the pavement into a mirror that reflected flashing traffic lights and distant emergency sirens. Olivia Hayes barely noticed. Her entire focus rested on the unconscious man lying in front of her. Blood continued soaking through the expensive black suit, despite the pressure she kept against the wound. "Please," she whispered, "don't quit on me." A pair of trembling hands appeared beside her. It belonged to Mr. Henderson, the elderly florist from across the street. "I've already called 911, he said nervously. Olivia shook her head. They won't get here in time. She knew severe blood loss when she saw it. Years earlier, While caring for her father during the final months of his cancer, she had attended every home care training session the hospice nurses offered. She had learned how to stop bleeding, how to recognize shock, how to keep someone alive until professionals arrived. She never imagined she would use those lessons on a complete stranger, lying in the middle of a rain-soaked sidewalk. The man suddenly coughed. Fresh blood stained the corner of his mouth. His breathing became shallow. Olivia carefully opened his jacket farther. The bullet had entered just below his ribs. Fortunately, there was no exit wound, which meant the bullet remained inside. A dangerous situation, but also one small advantage. The bleeding appeared slower than if the round had torn completely through him. She removed her apron, folded it tightly, pressed it against the wound. "Stay with me." His eyelids fluttered. Dark grey eyes met hers again. Even injured, even pale from blood loss, he carried himself with an almost frightening calm. Not fear, not panic, control. The kind of control that came from someone accustomed to surviving impossible situations. "You," he breathed, "you should leave." Olivia almost laughed. "I'm a baker. I don't take medical advice from patients." For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, almost disbelief. Then another wave of pain struck him. His body tensed violently. Olivia reached into the emergency supply cabinet, mounted beside the bakery entrance. Every business owner on the block kept one after an elderly customer suffered a heart attack 2 winters earlier. She wrapped fresh, sterile gauze around the makeshift dressing, applied firmer pressure. "Keep talking," she instructed. "It keeps you awake." He stared at the storm clouds overhead. "What is your name?" "Olivia." He repeated it quietly, as though committing it to memory. Before she could ask his name in return, 3 black SUVs rounded the corner. They didn't slow. They stopped with military precision. Doors flew open simultaneously. Men wearing dark tailored coats stepped into the rain. Every one of them carried concealed weapons. Olivia instinctively positioned herself between them and the wounded stranger. One of the men froze. His expression shifted from alarm to complete disbelief. "Boss!" The whispered word rippled through the group. Another man rushed forward. "Mr. Moretti." Olivia blinked. "Moretti?" The injured stranger slowly opened one eye. "You took long enough." Despite the situation, several men actually looked relieved enough to laugh. A silver-haired physician pushed through them carrying a black medical case. "I'm Dr. Julian Cross." He knelt beside Olivia. "You've done excellent work." He examined the bandage, checked the pulse, measured the breathing, then looked directly at her. "If you hadn't controlled the bleeding exactly when you did," he paused, "he wouldn't have survived the next 10 minutes. Olivia finally released a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The stranger was going to live. 2 men carefully lifted him onto a stretcher, just before they carried him away. His hand weakly reached toward Olivia's wrist. She looked down. He had almost no strength left, yet he still managed to speak. "Thank." The word faded before he finished. His eyes closed. Dr. Cross immediately checked his pulse. "He's unconscious. Move." The convoy disappeared almost as quickly as it had arrived. Within seconds, only flashing reflections remained on the wet pavement. Olivia stood motionless, still holding blood-stained gauze, still trying to understand what had just happened. Mr. Henderson approached carefully. "Do you know who that was?" She slowly shook her head. "No." He stared after the disappearing SUVs. "I've lived here 42 years. I've only seen security like that around one man." Olivia frowned. "Who?" The old florist hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Dante Moretti." The name meant nothing to Olivia. She simply sighed with relief. Whoever he was, at least he was alive. Back inside the bakery, she locked the door. Everything suddenly felt strangely quiet. The smell of fresh bread mixed with rainwater and antiseptic. She washed the blood from her hands. Twice. Still, she couldn't shake the image of his eyes. Nor the question he had asked. Why aren't you running from me? She emptied her soaked apron pockets onto the counter. A receipt. Her bakery keys. A roll of tape. Then, something small struck the wooden surface with a metallic click. A deformed handgun bullet. She stared. It was covered in dried blood. It must have fallen onto the apron while she compressed the wound. She reached toward it. Stopped. Should she call the police? Throw it away? Return it if she ever found the man again? She wrapped the bullet inside a clean bakery napkin and placed it in a kitchen storage tin. Tomorrow, she decided. She would figure out what to do tomorrow. Across the city, inside a hidden surgical suite beneath an abandoned warehouse, doctors fought to keep Dante Moretti alive. As surgical lights illuminated the operating table, Dr. Julian Cross held out his hand. The bullet. Silence filled the room. A nurse looked confused. We never found one. Every face turned toward the open wound. The operating surgeon frowned. It should still be here. Dr. Cross slowly looked up. No. His expression hardened. Someone removed it before he arrived. At that exact moment. Miles away, Olivia unknowingly placed the tiny blood-stained bullet into a cookie tin beside tomorrow morning's fresh cinnamon rolls. She had no idea that one ordinary decision had just made her the most important person in a conspiracy powerful enough to ignite a war. Dante Moretti woke to the steady rhythm of a heart monitor. For several seconds, he didn't open his eyes. He listened. Footsteps. Medical equipment. The faint hum of industrial generators, hidden somewhere beyond concrete walls. Not a hospital. One of his safe houses. Good. He slowly opened his eyes. Bright surgical lights stabbed through the lingering haze of anesthesia. Dr. Julian Cross immediately stepped to his bedside. Welcome back. Dante's voice came out rough. Report. The surgery was successful. The bullet? Dr. Cross hesitated. We have a problem. That single sentence erased every trace of exhaustion from Dante's face. What kind of problem? The bullet never reached the operating room. Silence settled over the room. Dante replayed fragmented memories. Rain. Gunfire. A woman pressing both hands against his wound. Then darkness. I felt someone working on the injury before your team arrived, he muttered. Dr. Cross nodded. She slowed the bleeding, stabilized your breathing, and somehow removed the bullet without causing additional damage. Even Cross sounded impressed. I've spent 20 years in trauma surgery. Most civilians would have killed you trying. Dante stared at the ceiling. The woman. You remember her? I remember her voice. He could still hear it. Stay awake. If you close your eyes now, I can't save you. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without fear. Not because he was Dante Moretti, not because of his power. Simply because another human being refused to let someone die alone. He turned toward the men waiting near the door. Marco De Luca, his longtime security chief, stepped forward immediately. Boss? Find her. Marco nodded once. We've already begun. No. Dante's voice remained calm, but every word carried unmistakable authority. I don't want investigators. I don't want intimidation. I want protection. Marco frowned slightly. Protection? The people who tried to kill me know someone treated my wound. If they realize the bullet is missing, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. Everyone in the room understood. The assassin would return for the evidence, and anyone holding it. Across town, Olivia unlocked Hayes' family bakery before sunrise. The familiar smell of yeast, cinnamon, and fresh coffee usually brought her comfort. Today it only reminded her how strange the previous night had been. Her younger sister Emma hurried downstairs from the apartment above the bakery. "You look exhausted." "I barely slept." Emma tied on her apron. "Still thinking about that man?" Olivia nodded. "He almost died. You saved him." "I don't even know if I really did." Emma smiled. "I've watched you keep Dad alive through treatments doctors thought he wouldn't survive. You always underestimate yourself." Olivia gave her sister a grateful smile before beginning the morning routine. Mixing dough, preparing pastries, serving the first customers. For almost 2 hours, life felt normal again. Then the television above the coffee counter interrupted regular programming. Breaking news. A black luxury SUV, surrounded by police cruisers, filled the screen. The reporter spoke rapidly. "Authorities continue refusing to comment on last night's attempted assassination of prominent businessman Dante Moretti." Olivia stopped kneading dough. The photograph appeared beside the reporter. It was him, the wounded stranger. Except this time, he wasn't covered in blood. He wore the same perfectly tailored black suit. The same calm expression. The same impossible eyes. Emma noticed her sister's face instantly. "Liv, that's him. The man from last night?" Olivia slowly nodded. The reporter continued. "Although officially known for international shipping and commercial real estate, federal investigators have long suspected Moretti maintains extensive organized crime connections." Emma lowered the television volume. "You saved." She struggled to finish the sentence. "A mafia boss?" Olivia leaned against the counter. "I didn't know." "You couldn't have, but now I do." A customer entered before either sister could continue the conversation. Business resumed, at least on the surface, because Olivia's thoughts kept drifting toward the small cookie tin hidden inside the kitchen cabinet. The bullet. She finished serving customers before quietly retrieving it. Still wrapped inside yesterday's clean bakery napkin. She unfolded the cloth carefully. The deformed projectile glinted beneath the kitchen lights. Something caught her attention. Tiny engraved lines, almost invisible. She frowned. That looked intentional. Meanwhile, inside Moretti Global Shipping Headquarters, Marco De Luca watched surveillance footage from 27 different cameras surrounding the bakery. There, he paused the video. Olivia, kneeling beside Dante, applying pressure, keeping him conscious. No hesitation, no fear. One younger lieutenant shook his head. She had no idea who he was. Marco folded his arms. Exactly. Most people would have run. Another guard entered hurriedly. "We've identified her." He handed Marco a folder. Olivia Hayes, 33. Owner of Hayes Family Bakery. No criminal record. No outstanding debt. No known connections to organized crime. Marco continued reading. Guardian of younger sister Emma, after both parents died. Cared for terminally ill father for 4 years. Completed volunteer emergency medical training during hospice care. Everything fit. She hadn't been lucky. She had known exactly enough to save Dante's life. Marco closed the folder. Increased surveillance. No contact yet. The lieutenant looked confused. Shouldn't we bring her in? Marco remembered Dante's exact words. Protection, not intimidation. She's lived her entire life outside our world. The last thing we do is drag her into it. Unfortunately, someone else had reached a very different conclusion. Several miles away, inside a luxury penthouse overlooking the Hudson River, Rafael Moretti calmly poured himself a glass of whiskey. The television displayed the same breaking news coverage. One of his associates entered quietly. The operation failed. I can see that. The boss survived. Rafael remained expressionless. And the bullet. The associate hesitated. Our inside source at the surgical team says it never reached the operating room. That finally earned Raphael's full attention. What do you mean? It disappeared before surgery. Silence. Then, Raphael smiled. Not warmly, predatorily. Interesting. He set down the whiskey glass. If the bullet vanished, someone has it. And if someone has it, they also have the microscopic forensic markings. The associate's face paled. The customized firing pin. Raphael nodded. The one unique to my personal handgun. For the first time since the failed assassination, real concern entered the room. Raphael slowly looked toward the Manhattan skyline. Find the woman who treated my cousin, before Dante does. Back at the bakery, Olivia held the strange bullet beneath a magnifying glass she normally used for cake decoration. What she saw made her heartbeat quicken. Tiny etched markings circled the metal. Not random scratches. Deliberate. Professional. Before she could study them further, the front doorbell chimed. A man in an expensive charcoal overcoat stepped inside. He smiled politely. Good morning. I'm looking for Olivia Hayes. Olivia looked up from behind the counter. I'm Olivia. The man's smile never changed. Wonderful. My employer would very much like to speak with you. He paused. About the gentleman whose life you saved last night. Outside. Across the street, Marco DeLuca watched the unfamiliar visitor through binoculars. His expression instantly hardened. I don't know who that is. He reached for his radio. But he's not one of ours. Marco DeLuca didn't wait for backup. The moment he saw the unfamiliar man speaking with Olivia through the bakery window, instinct took over. Theme 1, move. Two black SUVs pulled away from opposite sides of the street, without attracting attention. Inside the bakery, the stranger maintained a pleasant smile. My employer wishes to express his gratitude. Olivia remained behind the counter. I'm sorry, but who is your employer? The gentleman whose life you saved. She hesitated. You mean Mr. Moretti? The man's eyes flickered for the briefest moment. Enough to tell Olivia he hadn't expected her to know the name. Yes, he would like to thank you personally. Emma quietly stepped beside her sister. Why doesn't he call first? The visitor chuckled politely. Mr. Moretti isn't accustomed to making appointments. Something about his tone unsettled Olivia. Not threatening. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. Before she could answer, the bakery door opened again. Marco DeLuca entered. Unlike the newcomer, Marco made no attempt to appear friendly. His dark overcoat dripped with rain as his eyes immediately locked onto the stranger. Neither man spoke. Neither looked surprised. They recognized each other instantly. You've chosen the wrong bakery, Marco said calmly. The visitor smiled. I was just leaving. No. Marco took another step. I don't think you were. For several long seconds, the bakery became perfectly silent. Customers stopped talking. Even Emma sensed the invisible tension filling the room. Finally, the visitor adjusted his gloves. My employer dislikes misunderstandings. So does mine. The stranger inclined his head politely toward Olivia. I'm certain we'll meet again. Then he walked out. Marco watched through the window until the man disappeared into a waiting sedan. Only then did he exhale. Olivia crossed her arms. Who are you? Marco reached into his coat and placed a business card on the counter. It contained only one name. Marco DeLuca. No phone number. No company. Nothing else. You saved Mr. Moretti's life. I know. I also know someone else is looking for you. Olivia's expression hardened. I don't want to be involved in whatever this is. I believe you. Marco looked around the quiet bakery. You've spent years building a peaceful life. You deserve to keep it. So help me understand one thing. He looked directly into her eyes. Did you remove the bullet? Olivia froze. She hadn't told anyone. Not the police. Not Emma. Not even herself out loud. Marco noticed the hesitation. Then you have it. Emma looked between them. What bullet? Olivia slowly closed the bakery's front door and turned the sign to closed. Customers quietly left, sensing the conversation had become private. Once they were alone, Olivia retrieved the cookie tin from beneath the counter. She carefully unfolded the napkin. The distorted bullet rested in her palm. Marco stared at it. His normally disciplined expression changed. Relief, concern, then something closer to dread. You have no idea what this is, do you? Olivia shook her head. I thought it was evidence. It is. The most dangerous kind. Marco reached into his pocket and removed a small magnifying loupe. He examined the bullet for only a few seconds before becoming completely still. I was afraid of this. What? He turned the bullet beneath the light. Tiny circular grooves. These aren't manufacturing marks. They're microscopic firing pin signatures. Olivia frowned. I don't understand. Every modified weapon leaves unique impressions. He looked at her. This bullet identifies the exact gun that fired it. Emma's face turned pale. So whoever shot Mr. Moretti can be identified. Marco nodded. If this reaches the wrong person first, it could start a war. At that exact moment, miles away, Dante stood inside the private library of the Moretti estate. His wound still ached beneath the fresh bandages, but he ignored it. Across the table sat Grace Whitfield, former federal forensic examiner, one of the few civilians Dante trusted. Grace spread photographs from the crime scene. The ambush wasn't random. I know. The shooters knew your exact route. I know. They also knew your security rotation. Dante's expression darkened. Grace slid another file across the table. I've spent all morning reviewing encrypted communications, intercepted after the attack. She opened the folder. Someone inside your organization disabled 3 surveillance cameras exactly 90 seconds before the shooting. Dante silently read the report. Every authorization code belonged to senior leadership. Someone with unrestricted access. Someone close. Very close. His phone vibrated. Marco. I found her. Dante immediately stood. Is she safe? For now. Marco hesitated. But she has the bullet. Dante closed his eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. The assassins know. They will. I've already confirmed the forensic markings. Dante looked toward the rain beyond the massive windows. They'll never stop hunting her. No, Marco answered quietly. They won't. Back inside the bakery, Marco carefully wrapped the bullet again. I'm taking this. Olivia reached out before he could. No. Marco blinked. If I hand that over, I lose the only proof that any of this happened. I don't even know if I can trust you. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Marco slowly nodded. Good. Olivia looked confused. Good? You shouldn't trust anyone. Not me. Not the police. Not even Mr. Moretti. That answer surprised her. I work for him. My job isn't to make you believe us. It's to keep you alive. He reached for the door. I'm placing protection outside this bakery, whether you want it or not. Olivia sighed. I don't need bodyguards. Marco stopped without turning around. You misunderstand. They aren't there to protect Mr. Moretti's evidence. He glanced back over his shoulder. They're there because the moment someone realizes you still possess that bullet, they won't try to steal it. They'll try to make sure you disappear with it. The words lingered long after Marco left. Olivia locked the bakery, closed every curtain. Emma looked terrified. What do we do now? Before Olivia could answer, the lights suddenly went out. The entire bakery fell into darkness. Outside, the streetlights remained on. Only their building had lost power. Then came the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. Someone had entered through the rear kitchen window. In the darkness, a calm, unfamiliar voice echoed from the back of the bakery. "Miss Hayes, you've made this much harder than it needed to be." The darkness lasted less than 3 seconds. Then the bakery's emergency lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the kitchen. Olivia instinctively stepped in front of Emma. "Stay behind me," the voice came again. Calm, confident. "You've caused a great deal of trouble over one tiny piece of metal." A tall man emerged from the broken kitchen window. He wore black gloves and carried a suppressed pistol pointed toward the floor. Not rushed, not nervous, like a professional who had done this many times before. 2 more men silently entered behind him. Olivia's heartbeat thundered. "What do you want? You already know." His eyes drifted toward the cookie tin resting on the counter. "The bullet," Emma whispered behind her sister. "Liv." Olivia slowly shook her head. "No," the man sighed. "I was hoping you'd be reasonable." He raised the pistol. "I'd rather not hurt innocent people." Before anyone could move, a deafening crash erupted from the bakery's front entrance. The locked glass door exploded inward. Dark figures flooded inside. Marco De Luca led them. "Down!" His command echoed through the bakery. The intruders reacted instantly. Gunfire erupted. Suppressors turned deadly shots into sharp mechanical pops. Marco tackled Olivia and Emma behind a heavy steel preparation table as shattered glass sprayed across the room. One attacker dove toward the counter. Another fired while retreating toward the kitchen. The leader grabbed the cookie tin. Before he could escape, a single gunshot echoed louder than all the others. His hand jerked open. The cookie tin clattered across the floor. The bullet rolled beneath a display case. Everyone froze. Standing in the ruined doorway, still pale from surgery, still wearing the fresh bandage beneath his black dress shirt, was Dante Moretti. He held his pistol with one steady hand. His expression was frighteningly calm. "You came." Marco sounded genuinely surprised. "The doctor cleared me for walking. He certainly didn't clear you for this." "No," Dante answered. "I ignored him. His eyes never left the armed men. You entered a bakery. You threatened innocent people. You frightened the woman who saved my life." His voice remained almost conversational. "I take all 3 personally." The remaining attackers exchanged nervous glances. They had expected bodyguards, not Dante himself. The leader slowly smiled. "So the rumors are true." "You really came." Dante recognized him immediately. Victor Sloan. The man's polite mask disappeared. "So you know my name. I know you were never intelligent enough to organize an ambush alone." Victor laughed. "You're right. It wasn't my plan. It was Raphael's." Marco's head snapped toward Dante. Neither man spoke. Neither needed to. Only one, Raphael, mattered. Raphael Moretti. Dante's cousin. Blood. Family. One of the few people trusted with internal security. Victor continued. "He said removing you would modernize the organization. He promised everyone who helped him a promotion." Dante almost looked disappointed. "I built an empire, and he tried to inherit it with one bullet." Victor shrugged. "It nearly worked." "No," Dante replied quietly. It failed the moment Olivia refused to walk away. Police sirens began echoing outside. Victor's expression changed. "You called them." Marco almost smiled. "No. The neighbors did." Victor glanced toward the shattered windows. His escape routes were disappearing. He lunged toward Olivia. Everything happened at once. Emma screamed. Victor grabbed Olivia by the arm, pressed the pistol against her shoulder. "No one move!" The bakery fell silent. Victor's breathing became ragged. "I'll trade her." "No," Dante answered. "You won't." Victor laughed nervously. "You think I won't shoot? I know you won't." "How?" "Because you don't have time." Victor frowned, then realized something. He slowly looked down. The magazine had fallen from his pistol during the struggle. Marco had kicked it away without anyone noticing. The weapon in Victor's hand was empty. Before he could react, Marco closed the distance. One precise strike. Victor collapsed unconscious onto the bakery floor. Silence returned. Emma immediately hugged her sister. Olivia stood frozen. Dante approached slowly, not like a mafia boss, not like a man accustomed to commanding fear, simply like someone making sure another person was unharmed. "You all right?" Olivia nodded. "I think so. You shouldn't have come." A faint smile touched Dante's face. "You said something to me yesterday." She looked confused. "When?" "When I asked why you weren't running." Recognition crossed her face. "You said, 'I don't leave people behind.'" He glanced around the destroyed bakery. "I decided that advice works both ways." For the first time since meeting him, Olivia smiled. A real smile. Small, tired, but genuine. Hours later, the captains of the Moretti organization assembled inside the Grand Council chamber. No one spoke. Everyone sensed something historic was about to happen. Raphael Moretti entered confidently. He still believed the assassination had failed because of bad luck. He didn't know Victor Sloan had already confessed. Dante walked into the chamber, alive, healthy enough to stand. Every captain immediately rose. Raphael's face lost all color. I survived." Dante calmly took his seat. Marco placed a sealed evidence container on the long oak table. Inside rested the deformed bullet. Grace Whitfield connected a digital microscope to the large screen behind them. The microscopic firing pin markings appeared for every captain to see. Grace spoke clearly. This bullet was compared against every registered weapon authorized for senior leadership. She clicked once. Another image appeared. An identical pattern, matching perfectly. She turned toward Raphael. There was only one match. Silence crushed the room. Dante looked at his cousin. "I gave you authority. I gave you trust. I even gave you my name." Raphael slowly stood. "You gave me shadows. I was always second. You were never second." Dante's disappointment carried more weight than anger. "You chose betrayal." Raphael suddenly reached beneath his jacket. Every weapon in the room pointed toward him instantly. He stopped, looked around. No one moved to help him. Not one captain, not one ally. He had already lost. Marco stepped forward. "It's over." Raphael slowly raised both hands. For the first time in decades, one of New York's most powerful criminal conspiracies collapsed. Not because of violence, not because of revenge, but because one ordinary woman had refused to throw away a single bullet. As Raphael was escorted from the chamber in handcuffs, every captain turned toward Dante. He remained silent for several moments. Then he spoke one sentence. "Tomorrow." He looked directly at Marco. "Bring Olivia Hayes here. Not as a witness, as the guest of honor." Morning sunlight poured through the front windows of Hayes Family Bakery. For the first time in days, the smell of fresh bread replaced the scent of gunpowder. Olivia stood behind the counter kneading dough, while Emma carefully replaced the shattered display glass. Life wasn't completely normal, but it was beginning again. A black luxury sedan stopped outside. Emma looked through the window. "They're here." Olivia smiled faintly. "I know." This time, she wasn't afraid. Marco entered first. Unlike every previous meeting, he carried no weapon in his hands. only a neatly wrapped bakery box. "I believe this belongs to you." Olivia opened it. Inside lay every family recipe card that had been scattered during the attack. Each one had been carefully cleaned and preserved. Her eyes softened. "Thank you." Marco simply nodded. "Someone else would like to speak with you." Dante stepped inside, without bodyguards surrounding him, without the intimidating presence that newspapers always described. He looked human. The bandage beneath his jacket reminded Olivia how close he had come to dying on the sidewalk outside this very shop. "I hope we're not interrupting." Olivia smiled. "You arrived before the morning rush, so you're safe." He looked around the bakery. The place survived. Barely. She laughed quietly. "So did you." For a moment, neither spoke. Neither needed to. Finally, Dante reached into his coat and removed a folded envelope. "I've already arranged payment for all damages." Olivia gently pushed the envelope back toward him. "No, you lost your business because of me." "My windows," she corrected softly. "My business is still here." She placed one hand over her heart. "My family built this place. Glass can be replaced. It isn't for the windows." Dante answered. "It's for everything you risked." She looked directly into his eyes. "I didn't save you for money. I know. And that's exactly why you deserve more than money." Later that afternoon, Olivia accepted an invitation to the Moretti Foundation's annual Community Appreciation Ceremony. She assumed it would be private. She was wrong. Television cameras filled the ballroom. Neighborhood leaders, doctors, firefighters, teachers, charity volunteers. Even city officials had gathered. No one mentioned organized crime. Officially, the event honored ordinary citizens whose courage had changed lives. Olivia quietly took a seat near the back. She hoped no one would notice her. Instead, Dante walked directly onto the stage. The room immediately fell silent. He rarely appeared in public. When he did, people listened. He stood behind the podium for several seconds before speaking. Every successful life is built upon moments we never expect. He looked across the audience. "A week ago, I nearly lost mine. No one moved. My doctors deserve tremendous credit. My security team deserves loyalty, but none of them were there. When I first collapsed." His gaze found Olivia. One woman was. Cameras immediately turned toward her. Olivia looked completely overwhelmed. Dante continued. "She didn't know my name. She didn't know my reputation. She owed me absolutely nothing. She simply saw another human being who needed help." He paused. That decision saved more than one life. Another image appeared on the large screen, not photographs from the attack. Instead, pictures of neighborhood charities, scholarship programs, food banks, medical clinics, organizations funded through the Moretti Foundation, because she refused to abandon one wounded stranger. He continued quietly. A conspiracy collapsed. Hundreds of innocent employees kept their jobs. Dozens of community programs remained funded, and an organization built on betrayal lost its power. The ballroom remained completely silent. Then Dante stepped away from the podium, walked directly toward Olivia. Every camera followed. He stopped in front of her, not as a powerful businessman, not as the city's most feared man, simply as someone expressing gratitude. He extended his hand. "Miss Olivia Hayes, thank you." She accepted his hand. The audience rose together. A standing ovation echoed throughout the ballroom. Olivia's eyes filled with tears, not because of the applause, but because for the first time since losing her parents, someone had publicly recognized the quiet compassion they had taught her to live by. After the ceremony ended, the crowd slowly dispersed. Dante and Olivia stepped onto the balcony, overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The evening air, carried the scent of rain, just like the night they first met. "I've been thinking about something," Dante said. Olivia smiled. "That's usually dangerous." He laughed. "I asked you why you didn't run. You did. I never thanked you for your answer." She leaned against the railing. "My father used to say, character isn't revealed when helping good people. It's revealed when helping people who can't repay you." Dante looked toward the city lights. "I've spent years believing loyalty had to be purchased. You proved I was wrong." She studied him for a moment. "What happens now?" "The investigation continues. The organization changes. And you?" He hesitated. "I'd like to keep seeing the woman who reminds me there's still goodness in this city." Olivia raised one eyebrow. "Are you asking me on a date?" A rare smile spread across Dante's face. "I own several restaurants." She pretended to consider it. "I own a bakery." "I know. I'll make dessert." He laughed. The sound surprised even him. For years, power had filled his life. Respect had surrounded him. Fear had protected him. But peace had arrived wearing a flower-covered apron, handing him a second chance he never expected to receive. As the city lights shimmered below, neither of them knew exactly where the future would lead. They only knew one simple truth. The night a frightened bakery owner refused to walk away from a bleeding stranger, 2 lives had changed forever. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness becomes the beginning of the greatest story.